Hello, fellow gamers. I'm Gloryhound, and this is
DrGloryhogg.
And today we're going to be talking about Gloomhaven versus Destinies. Which will you choose? What stays on your shelf? I'm really curious to see what our chat has to say about it all today, because these are two epic level campaign games. So, and I've been blown away, I think, by both of them. It's quite the stack.
They're very lightweight games. Oh my god.
Very,
that was actually much harder to lift than I thought.
Quite the stack we have going on here. So hello to our chat today. It looks like we have Petter in chat, Nosferatu, we have Battlecry in chat, we have the good old DrGloryhogg in chat today.
Probably my favorite fan, DrGloryhogg,
is it
for
really?
sure. Yeah, he's really good.
Aww. How are you all doing?
I guess the big question is, why are we doing this?
What do you mean?
So this was your idea to compare and contrast them true. Why so?
Well, if it's any consolation, I just bought the foreteller stuff. Oh yeah, we're going to talk about the foreteller stuff as well. So, and Cody says, I'm working through Destinies with some buddies. Cody, do you also have Gloomhaven? I'm curious about that. Hello, Jolly Lumpy. So,
Fatal, Cody, Jolly Lumpy, welcome everyone.
Here's the thing. For me, whenever I was looking on my shelf, because we really love epic style campaign, heavy, thick storytelling games, and I was looking on my shelf and I was like, wow, here's two of those type of games that are very different from each other, but I love so much. And I feel like if you have one, you should try the other, but maybe not each one is for everybody.
I think they're for totally different. I think you can like both of them, but I think they're for totally different people.
I also feel like that. So I feel like if you go and you get Gloomhaven, then you're like, oh man, I'm probably gonna like Destinies. That may not be the case, and vice versa. If you go and pick up Destinies, you're like, this is amazing. This is my intro into these epic campaign-style games. Right. And then you pick up Gloomhaven, you're like, oh my.
Well, and there's always something to be said about having a new contender that is just barely like delivering to people versus like what's considered the standard, right?
Oh yeah,
because I mean, like, Gloomhaven is like #1 in everything. Number one. It's so much #1. It hurts. Like it's #1 on everything. Thick storytelling. I like that. It's true. I think I like pulled out my back trying to lift them all up.
They've got some thick, juicy storytelling in them. Okay, so what do we really want to start with? I mean, I think.
Well, do you want to describe what Destinies? Do we want to describe what the different games are? This is unscripted and live. We're just doing this for something fun to do.
Absolutely. So let's talk about each one and kind of what each one offers a little bit. So, do you want to start?
Well, yeah. So Destinies is a heavy story playing game which has an integrated app.
Right.
So essentially, what you are doing is you have one of two different goals based off your character, and there's usually three different characters you can pick from.
Don't look at my notes, everyone.
But you'll have one or two. Why are my hands down here? What are they doing?
You need to get Destinies out here. Come on.
Okay, sorry. I got distracted.
Nosferatu says, I felt like I didn't need Destinies because of Gloomhaven expansion Frosthaven. Right. And I feel like a lot of people might be in that area, and I'm going to tell you why Destinies might be for you, Nosferatu. Go ahead.
All right. So essentially, like I said, it's a heavy story playing game. It's got app integration, and what you're essentially doing is you've got one of three different characters you play for each different chapter. You run through the map. You're trying to discover things, interact with world events, essentially, and hopefully you solve one of your two puzzles, basically on the back, or one of your two objectives before everybody else does. So it is a race to complete. Oh, look at that. It's actually, I do like the little insert for this.
I know, the insert's really nice, right? It's 1 to 3 players, so you only have the 3-player boards here. And let's see here. What did I do with my hands?
I know.
Frosthaven isn't going to come out for another year, though. But, you know, Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion just came out, and ooh, that's a whole nother topic thing we're going to get to. Components-wise and stuff like that, I feel like you definitely have less components.
Well, yes, this is a much smaller box. But the campaigns are completely different, too. Because this has 5 campaigns. It's got a standalone and then 4 connected campaigns in the base game, which this is the base game. So I do have to state that this is the base game. It's not upgraded in any way, shape, or form that I know of. This is a game that we are currently borrowing from Game Boy Geek. We're going to play live tonight, so you can actually see it in action also on the Game Boy Geek channel.
So I think the big thing with this one is that it is 1 to 3 players. So in Gloomhaven, you can
Super
definitely have
unique.
a lot more players with it. Yeah, super
well,
unique.
Gloomhaven's 1 to 4, so you can have one more player.
Feels like so many more players whenever it's just one more, right?
It does. It does. They both have a solo mode, though. So if you are a solo gamer, they are both very easily accessible for solo.
I think with this one here, what Gloomhaven players might be disappointed with is the fact that when you do level up your character, and then the next scenario, you play a completely different character.
In which one?
This one.
Oh, in Destinies, yes.
In Destinies, you play a different character. Here's
the thing. So I've heard a lot of people talking about how, oh, this only has X amount of campaigns, or there's no replayability, right?
Right.
But even in the campaign-ish story, you pick 1 of 3 characters. The next level, or like the next mission you do, has 3 completely different characters again, with different goals, and it's just loosely tied together. So like one of them you might do something that's based around, say, like a small farming community. The next one, it's more of a proper city, and it has a completely different storyline. So they're not like so linked that you couldn't just play them as solo scenarios. I don't see any issue as of right now with just jumping into whichever one you feel like playing. If you want to play with one that's based off a plague or war or werewolves, like you have that option. I feel like you don't have to play through the first 3 in order to play the 4th one, is what I'm saying.
Oh, absolutely. So let's hear. We're just borrowing, in quotation marks, this. Definitely not stealing.
Yeah. This is one that he likes enough that he had us bring it back to his party.
Yes.
And then we were like, okay, we still haven't done the live playthrough. He's like, okay, I guess you guys can take it back. But he definitely wants this back.
Okay, and Fatal says, don't play that challenge mode, solo or whatever it is. Are you talking about the challenge mode that is the time challenge where stuff happens in the game? I really like that portion of this where when you are playing, and I know a lot of people are very upset about like app-assisted games, but when you're playing, you can have spontaneous events that happen that come up in the app that are complete surprises. Like it could happen, it could not happen. You don't know what's going to come up whenever you're playing that. I really enjoy that portion of it. As far as like the art in this one here, you got really cute art. It looks really good. Very thematic looking. Let's see here. Do you want to get Gloomhaven out too? We can open up some of that as well.
No. Are you serious?
The different, well, maybe Jaws of the Lion or something.
Well, Jaws of the Lion was also made as a retail product, not just like through Kickstarter and everything.
Here's the thing. I feel like
it's a very different product.
Jaws of the Lion is
look at our stickers.
Is at least closer.
Yeah. Ugh. Look at all the dust on Gloomhaven. That's awkward.
At least closer. Ooh, that's another thing. How often is this going to get to your table, everyone? So I feel like Jaws of the Lion is at least a closer semblance of this, and it does have a nice walkthrough. With Destinies, you can pretty much open up the app, throw down whatever it is. Somebody can tell you a few items like, okay, you know, only 2 movements unless you have something otherwise, and you're ready to play the game. Like this one here, I don't know.
Whew. I will say the one thing that what Gloomhaven has going for is the Jaws of the Lion is much easier to approach because it does have a walk you through tutorial. That being said, this one has like a, I don't know, like a 10-page rule book, and you literally learn how to play it by just playing it.
Yeah.
Jaws of the Lion, even, you still have to go through I believe it's 5 different campaigns before you unlock the full Gloomhaven experience. So there is a lot, and it's just packed with tokens and bits and bobs and everything else.
So, Cody Perry, that was my complaint, though. A very limited replayability. I feel they could have taken the Destinies off the back of the cards and put them in the app.
So then you had different objectives. I think the
that
big
would have been
thing
interesting.
It's got going for it, though, is that your world events, every time you interact with a world event, you're probably going to be rolling dice or making some type of decision. Just because you might know that there's something over there, your phone, just because there's something over there that might be an issue, like say you find like a wolf's den or something, just because you happen to know where it is doesn't mean that when you go approach it that you're going to be able to interact with the exact same way. You could fail your die roll, you can make a slightly different decision, and that would greatly impact it. Or if you play a different character, that would also super impact how you play the overall game. Like if I was playing the witch instead of the guardian, I'm going to play very differently because I have different endgame goals for Destinies.
Absolutely.
Where with, Gloomhaven, you can replay it, right? But you're just changing out your characters, but you know the scenario. Like the scenario setup is the same every time. I don't remember any scenario where they were like randomly pick this or that. It was always, this guy goes here, this firmling goes over here, this firmling goes over there.
I never feel like Destinies is a surprise either, because whenever you, or not Destinies, Gloomhaven is a surprise either, because you do go through the map and everything, and like the scenario booklet, and you set up things the way it shows you to. At least in Jaws of the Lion, you have like the flipping of pages and stuff like that that kind of keeps things a little bit more of a secret for you.
A little bit, yes.
Sorry, my phone is being crazy, everyone.
So it does give you a little bit of a different feeling. Like the flat map of the Jaws of the Lion is definitely a very good product. I really enjoy that. But there is always a different sense of exploration when you're flipping over tiles, right? So you have like this grayed out area, and all you know is you hear sounds of wolves coming from over there, or you hear the clang of fighting, or all the you smell fires and burning flesh from over here, but you don't know what's actually there till you go there. Where with Jaws of the Lion or Gloomhaven, it's all out in front of you. The bad guys are just standing there. You know exactly where they are. They know exactly where you are. So they're definitely a different exploration style feeling.
So as far as ease of play on these, which one do you feel like is easier to play?
Oh, Destinies by far.
Destinies by far.
Oh, 100%. Like I said, Gloomhaven, even Jaws of the Lion, has 5 scenarios before you unlock it all. Plus, you have to manage every single individual bad guy. You've got to manage all the terrain, what your guy's doing, it's card management. There is a ton of stuff you have to control in Gloomhaven.
It's very manual,
With Destinies,
right?
you're basically moving your character from event to event and then interacting with that event based off what the app says. Either you're rolling dice, or you're making a choice, or you're buying something, you're talking to somebody. It's a very, very different experience.
It absolutely is. And let's see here. I'm going back to my notes here. Components-wise, which one do you think has better components? And this is for chat too. Like, is there certain components that you really enjoy out of either game?
I think the biggest difference is that there's a lot more components in the Gloomhaven series.
Okay.
But they both come with some miniatures. You get a lot more miniatures in Destinies. I don't think either one of them component-wise is dramatically better. I think I do like the art, the Lucky Duck art, a little bit more. Mm-hmm. It seems more, I don't know how to really explain. I just like the art a little bit more. It seems more realistic.
Hello, Glory Mom. Let's see here. It's unfortunate that I cannot play the same scenario with the group because I have the advantage of knowing where certain things are. Exactly, Cody, right?
So, yeah, I feel like yes and no, because we're about to play a scenario that we played before, but I think if you switch characters, that does make a really big difference. You might have an idea of where something's at, but unless you're like really, really paying attention, if you do what we did, which is play through like all the scenarios within a small frame of time, like 2 weeks, or within like a couple days, for me personally, who doesn't have the best of memory, I played through 5 different scenarios in Destinies. I know kind of a general idea where certain things happen, but I can't remember every single instance or what I have to do to trigger every single event.
Right, and so...
If I played as a different character, I would not be able to 100% know where everything is, unless I just played it like the day before and then immediately play it again.
Well, Cody's saying where I feel that if they put the Destinies in the app instead of the cards, you would be able to play with... Oh, did I already read that one? Maybe. Let's see here. Is the Gloomhaven app a third-party thing or is it an official thing? It is an official third-party thing, Nosferatu. Foreteller worked directly with Cephalofair Games to make it as integrative as possible, and it's really, really good. But as for the app and everything, it's mostly going to be like reading you story and just be like a thematic addition to the game, as opposed to something that's actually running it, like Destinies. So, I love the thick chips in Destinies. Me too, right? Let's see here. The stat boards in Destinies is really nice, being able to upgrade and downgrade stats instantly. That's the one thing I have to say, Doctor, is right here, this rolling and having this stat board and your successes, I feel is like such a genius mechanic that everybody can see. It's so easy to put where your successes are going to be and then roll and go, oh, okay, I'm 6. All right. Like, if I had just gotten 7, I would have gotten two of the stats, or 2 successes, because I have 2 little beads in here. So like it's a super easy visual thing that I feel like everybody can just get right off the bat. Like if I was...
No, I agree. I think it is really easy to figure that out. But that's one of probably the downsides of Destinies, is that there's no real strategic, you are rolling dice. So there's a random outcome.
Yeah, that
Where
is true.
with Gloomhaven, you get to look at your cards and strategically decide which card combinations you want to use. Definitely a lot more like cases for analysis paralysis, where you're sitting there going like, oh, I don't know which cards to play or whatever. With this one, I mean, you go, okay, well, it's going to be using the lore stat. I'm going to roll dice and hopefully get as many successes as possible. You know that the more success you get, the better the outcome is going to be. What I do like about it being app-based, though, is that you don't know exactly how many you need. It's not like, oh, I need to roll 2 successes to succeed. You can. There's definitely times where you're like, oh man, I only need 2 successes, and you find out, oh, I probably needed more to get something better, a better benefit.
So Foreteller is the voiceovers. The actual Gloomhaven Helper app is, like Petter said, amazing for monster management. I have not played with that particular app with Gloomhaven yet, so I'm going to have to check that out in there. Let's see here. The Strat and Destinies is bringing certain cards to events and trying those instead of rolling dice. Right. One is one is like an investigative box, more like Chronicles of Crime. You're going around, you're trying to investigate where you can find your destiny at, where this is a dungeon crawl. And I think that's a very specific difference. Like, yes, you are kind of somewhat dungeon crawling in this because you're, going across lands and discovering things. But in this here, only one of you is the winner. This is not cooperative. Once you figure out how to get to your destiny, it's like a race. Whereas this one here, it's like, how can everybody work together and synergize what we're doing in order to defeat an ultimate evil?
Because that is a point we didn't talk about. This is competitive, or this is cooperative.
Yes.
You're not killing each other in Gloomhaven.
Totally competitive.
Well,
one is cooperative.
I mean, I think you could find a way to kill me in Gloomhaven, but I mean, that's not the goal.
Okay, so Cohen says, Explorer mode is too easy. What I found on BGG, a mod to increase the stat each round. If all stats equal 12, you lose. This makes a little more challenging, but not as challenging as challenge mode.
So you with that type of mod, you'd be trying to race to make sure you are making your stats better and better without letting all of them go to 12. That makes sense.
Let's see here. Besides campaign, I don't see much comparison between the two games. Yes. Okay. So going through, because I clumped these two games together originally, thinking, okay, like, these are 2 big box campaign sets. Then this will be big box once you get all the additional content for it. And I was like, do I need to let one of these games go? Because, like, we only have so much space. And upon going through some of this stuff, like, I'm thinking that these may be too different.
Well, they are very, very different from each other. I think they give you completely different experiences.
Right, completely different experiences.
Let me ask you this. The other day you were talking to your mother, who doesn't play, she plays games, but she hasn't played a whole bunch of hobby games.
Yeah.
You said that she would like this one.
Yes, I do.
Would you ever suggest playing Gloomhaven with her?
Never.
Right. So I think that's a very big difference. And I will also say that Destinies is the only game our kid ever woke up and wanted to play solo by themselves.
Yes.
And our kid just turned 11, but they, like, as soon as they woke up, they were like, I want to play it solo.
Game ever.
They played
solo play for our 11-year-old. They woke up super excited and were like, we introduced him to it the night before.
We played 2 campaigns with them the night before.
Yeah, and then they're like, I want to play by myself, because they very much wanted to do all the things and all the stuff. So they're like, I don't need anybody else, just leave me alone. And they did play on their own. And here's another thing. The length of gameplay in these two, this one here is set up more...
It can be faster.
Right, it's set up to be more like, okay, here's a quick game night. This is almost more board gamer-ish, where this is more RPG-ish.
Well, so if we were going to compare them directly to each other, which this is Jaws of Lion, not Gloomhaven, which is like way too big for me to really put in the table. The gigantical box
that would take up the whole table.
And you can see all the dust on it. Look at that dust.
That's another thing.
So, oh gosh, that dust is on our table now.
Sounds like the game for me, says the Glory Mom.
I'm allergic to dust. That's probably a mistake. Why did I put that in my face? All right. So if I was to compare the two of them, I would say they offer different experiences. If you are somebody who likes RPG, the combat and role-playing games. So basically what Dungeons and Dragons used to be, where it was very combat-based. There was almost no storytelling in it. It's very, very combat-based. There's like a little scenario like, oh, you see some owlbears or something like that, but then you fight, right? That is Gloomhaven in a nutshell. If you like the idea of an open world RPG style game like they have for video games, like say, Assassin's Creed, where there's an overall story, but mostly it's going around and interacting with the world. Or say like a Fallout, or yes, there's a main storyline, but this is like all the side quests in something like Skyrim, where you're going around and you're like, oh, I see a bloody caravan. Oh, I see a trader over there. Oh, there's a monk over there. And you get to interact with them and figure out what they're there for and what they're doing, and then you get to basically complete a side quest with them, where this doesn't quite have that the same way. This is the boss fight, or these are boss fights, and this is all of the side quests.
So Cody says, what about the comparison of Deliverance and Gloomhaven? We have not played Deliverance personally, so we would not be able to go ahead and give you that comparison,
Sure.
Cody. Sorry about that. And Petter says, Destinies is a game night game, and Gloomhaven is a lifestyle game. And I think that is very, very true. You're going to be living Gloomhaven once you get started. Now,
which is another point, though, too, because Gloomhaven, I've played the first scenario 4 times now with 4 different groups.
Yeah.
Both ourselves, with other people, another couple, and another couple. I've gotten into Gloomhaven, but not nearly as deep, where this one, you roll right into it, and it just seems like, okay, I want to play the next chapter.
right.
And you just set it up.
And the next chapter.
And then the next chapter.
But then you're done.
Yes, but it's very easy to roll from chapter to chapter in this one, and it's very easy to jump people in.
Yeah.
Where you can't really do that the same way in Gloomhaven. And every time I go to play Gloomhaven, I have to relearn how to play it.
Absolutely.
Where with this one, I wouldn't have to relearn it every single time. I mean, the bare bones are just there. They're very easy to jump into.
This one is super fun to play, but I also feel like the scenarios are going like so fast.
Yes, like we're going to play through all the base content.
We're going to play through it so fast. We could probably get through, like, what we'll end up doing, this is what we end up doing with campaign games, is we'll set up a campaign game for a weekend, and we'll play the campaign game for the entire weekend, usually, and just go through as many scenarios as possible. And whenever we get in big box games, we really like doing that, because once you've learned the rules and stuff, it's like, you want to power through it. You want to play all the things. And with Destinies, that is one day. Maybe.
If you get the base game right, you could go through all 5 campaigns
the base
in a
game
day.
is one day.
Yeah, if you woke up Saturday and you started playing, yes, I agree.
One entire day, but it is one day worth of campaigning, where Gloomhaven, it's going to take you
Petter said
way more than one weekend.
It just takes you every other weekend for 2.5 years.
But the price matching, though, kind of goes along with that, because this is like a $50 game. This is like, well, not this one, but the big Gloomhaven is a $100 game, you know? I mean...
Wasn't it even more than that? Wasn't it like $129?
Probably.
We
don't like to talk about that. Once it gets past 100, it's just 100, okay?
One thing that they do have in common, they are both almost impossible to find right after they release.
Yes,
because you could not find Gloomhaven. We bought Gloomhaven almost a year after it was out. And Destinies, you cannot get your hands on this either, but they are restocking it in the next couple months.
Hello, Eric. It's good seeing you here. I'd say 80% of Gloomhaven owners haven't fully completed it. Yes, absolutely. And we are among those Gloomhaven owners that just have not completed it yet.
We got farther in Jaws of the Lion just because...
You get distracted, you know, and then you go ahead and you play it on that weekend, and then you put it up, and especially for us who can't always revisit games all the time, Gloomhaven becomes a cumbersome thing to go back and relearn, because we can't play it every weekend. We have to play it every other month or something like that. Like, we have to sneak it in there whenever we can, you know, on weekends, and sometimes those weekends are devoted to learning other games. So...
You can almost compare them to, like, movies versus, like, a television show.
Yeah.
Gloomhaven's like a 5-season television show, like something like Lost, where you feel like if you're away from it too long, you have to, like, get back into it and remember what's going on, or any one of those games or any one of those TV shows where it's just multiple seasons that are all interconnected, and if you miss a season, you're in trouble. Where Destinies is more like a movie where you can jump into it, enjoy the movie, and then come back to it years later, and then enjoy the second movie and come back without having to have intricate knowledge of every single thing that happened before, because they are not connected that way like I thought they would be. I thought they were going to be more like a legacy-style campaign, and they very much are standalone scenarios. I think the biggest thing you could run into is that you don't want to play them back-to-back again and again, just like if you watch the movie and then you watch the very next day, you're going to remember most of it. But if you come back to it months from now and you play as a different character, I think you're going to have a little bit of a different experience.
Playing the different characters, too, will give you a different experience. It'll be more fun that way. So Petter says, Gloomhaven is an MSRP of $120, can be found consistently now for $100, which is nice because lots of people can get that in their hands. Eric Garcia says, how much is this new car? Somewhere around $100.
Fair.
That's how you do it. You don't feel as bad whenever
There you
it's
go.
like
Petter says Gloomhaven is the Marvel Cinematic Universe where everything is tied in.
Yes.
Where Destinies is something
Absolutely.
like John Wick. That's actually a good way. Or like King Kong, where it's like they're not so connected that you would actually have to know the one before it. Or something like Fast and the Furious. Or really any of those movies where you could just enjoy it by itself without having to know everything that came before it.
Are you excited to play one game more than the other? And chat, are you excited to
Yes.
play one game more than the other? I'm curious, like, about that. With
Yeah.
just in general. Which one are you more excited?
Destinies.
Destiny. You're more excited to play Destinies. Why
Right,
is
because
that?
we played Gloomhaven, and then we would, set up the next scenario and play it. I would start to get tired by the time we'd set up the third one, where I'm like, all right, now here's the third one. Where with Destinies, the only limitation was that it was midnight. And I was like, I don't want to play another round because it's midnight. But then I feel like I could just keep playing it and playing it because it's unlocking a story. This actually feels like more like something like The Witcher, where I'm running around, I'm having these little battles with different demons and monsters and scenarios and stuff like this, where like this is an RPG campaign that I would like, preferably would like somebody else to run and I get to experience. And overall, this is going to take, like Petter said, a year of my life
Yeah.
versus a night.
Yeah.
And that's a very big difference.
One thing I have to say that is, in my opinion, if we were doing it differently, if we were doing the app integration of Destinies differently, where it was on your phone and everybody had to pass the phone and nobody else could see anything at that point, like ours is projected up on the TV. We will play the app on our phone, but then it'll also be projected up on the TV where everybody
Right.
can see it. If that was not the case, I think I would enjoy Destinies less, and you don't have that sort of issue with Gloomhaven because everything's already out there, all on the cards. Like, everything's more tactile, I guess, is what it says. Because when
But
we
it's
start
also
getting,
harder to get to everything, though, too. Because you don't need the board as much with Destinies, right? There's still the things that you're flipping over.
Other thing I was going to. The other thing is that the app becomes so integrated into it. There are times I'm looking at the screen and I'm not looking at the actual board in play, and I'm like, we're just updating information here.
For your character more than anything else.
For your character, everybody else can kind of see what's
And
happening.
for movement.
Yeah, for movement, basically. And that really made me think about the line, line between going like a full video game, storytelling video game based game versus like having something in person, and where that line is actually drawn, because it could very easily be put on the other side as just a video game.
So many people are going to ding Destinies for its app integration, but what's the first thing people tell you when you go play Gloomhaven? Get Gloomhaven Helper.
Yeah.
So if you don't want app integration and Gloomhaven is so perfect, then why is the first thing they say, oh yeah, get the app to help you run all the different characters and stuff? Just an interesting thought. All these people that are like purists and they're like, oh, I don't like app-based games, are the same people that tell me I have to get the Gloomhaven Helper in order to even play the game and enjoy it in any way, shape, or form.
So let's see here. Petter says, well, I beat Gloomhaven, so Destinies, but Gloomhaven is my #1 game of all time. I think it's the #1 game of everybody's all time, like a lot. Cody says, that is facts. Running settings up to the next Destinies mission is cake.
Right.
The worst part is trying to get those tiny figures in their spots, right? The board is basically just to remember where your character is. Yeah, and I thought that was interesting.
Nosferatu says, the setup at Gloomhaven makes it feel like an event to play, something to look forward to like on your birthday or Christmas, right? And that is a good point. But man, if I have to relearn this every single time I want to play it, that makes it more of a chore than an event for me. Where I will remember the story and the things I did in Destinies more, because Gloomhaven becomes very much I fought these Vermlings, then I fought the Vermling archers, then I fought these. Like, there's certain story moments, of course, in Gloomhaven that you unlock that you're like, oh, that was memorable. But overall, I can tell you... Now, I did just recently play this one versus I haven't played this one for a couple months. I barely remember what I was doing in here. Where I feel like I will remember these stories more. Does that make sense?
Okay, interesting. All right.
Because this is so story-heavy and you're unlocking little bits, this game reminds me almost more of my father's work. Because my father's work was very story-heavy, and you had choices to make that kind of changed the board and everything else. I feel like this would be a really good comparison with my father's work and that app integration.
The Destinies one?
Yes.
And that's another big thing with my father's work. My father's work, though, is completely a worker placement game.
With storytelling in it.
With some storytelling in
well,
it.
There's a decent amount of storytelling in
well,
it.
it's not anywhere close, though, to to Destinies, in the fact that Destinies, like, you're solely, like every movement is solely driven by storytelling, whereas in my father's work, you're doing a lot of shuffling of things and creating things, and then there's like breaks of storytelling, if that makes sense. Like storytelling breaks.
Yeah, I like what Cody said. I feel like in Gloomhaven, you remember your character more than the story. That's accurate.
That is true.
While Destinies is more about the story and less about your character. Right, since you're switching your character every single chapter,
The characters, you're like,
not
whatever.
attached to your character, but you are attached to the story and what happened and how you got there. Where with Gloomhaven, it's really just going from one fight to the next fight. I feel like that's what most of it is. It's just beating it. So it does feel more like a monster fight where you're like, oh, I beat that monster fight. But unless something happened in that monster fight that was super memorable, it ends up just being like, oh yeah, I beat that, I beat that, I beat that. It's almost like a checkbox.
Right.
Where with Destinies, even though like I might have lost, finding out like what happened to my characters was kind of important. Where I was like, oh dang, I left in shame. Oh no, like
Yeah.
if I would have gotten there a little bit sooner or something like that. It's interesting getting to see it from that perspective.
Thoughts on a Destinies to Tainted Grail comparison? Ooh, Petter, that's a whole different show.
Yeah.
Because again, I feel like completely different games in that case, really.
I think
You
Tainted
know?
Grail might be closer to Gloomhaven, but with more story, more integrated story. Because you remember,
I think so. I think so.
but
Let's
your
hear.
fighting is with the cards. Yeah, that's tough. That's a tough one.
In that respect, I would enjoy Gloomhaven more. I wouldn't like to be dependent on the app, says Jolly Lumpy. I think that's a big thing for a lot of people as well. I love their subtle disses when you lose in Destinies,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, that's a real thing.
It's
And you know
super
what?
bad.
I was really worried because people said, oh, well, when in Destinies you play it, and if you lose, you don't get to find out what your destiny is, right? No, a destiny does happen to you. It just sucks. You
It's
lose.
just you got a bad destiny. It's
But I
not
was
good.
super worried that, like, oh man, if I lose, then when I go play the second scenario, I'm going to be at such a disadvantage. But you start fresh with a whole new character.
Yeah.
So you're not at a disadvantage at all. So losing isn't as big of a deal. When
Right.
you're playing something like Clank Legacy, when you win or lose, it changes you for the next round, right? So it's really important. You really want to make sure you win as much as possible. Or, you know, My City or any other legacy style game. When you're playing these different campaigns here, if I lose one scenario, I go into the next scenario fresh.
Yeah,
I'm not
it's
at a
like there's
disadvantage.
no problems.
There's
you don't
like
feel upset about
I'm
it.
not marking it in a book saying like you lost. Like I'm just like,
Your
oh.
character died, and then you feel bad. You're like, no.
You're just like, oh, okay. Well, next time. Next time.
So let's see here. Gloom is a dungeon crawler, and Tainted is a world crawler.
Yes, I would say
so.
Tainted Grail probably sits in the middle of both of them because there is more of a heavy
In like a
focus on the
subgroup. I
combat.
feel like we have circles, like those, like the big circles,
the
and they
Venn
all kind
diagram.
of, yeah, they all kind of cross over each other in different ways and stuff. Let's see here. The cards bridge the gap between Tainted Grail and Gloomhaven, but the story element is strong in Destinies, from what I can tell. So.
Well, I have a quick question for
Okay.
you. Do you think Destinies will ever reach the top 100 because of it being so app-based? What do you think?
I don't think it'll reach the top 100 because I think people are going to go through the campaign really, really fast. And it's going to feel almost more legacy-ish, where you go through the thing and you play it really fast and then it just gets put on your shelf for a while. Where I feel like the people who really, really love Gloomhaven, because Gloomhaven is life, like we had in chat and everything, it becomes this thing that people continually visit and go back to and love.
Well, it
and
takes you
it's a different type of love.
It takes you 8 years, apparently.
Yeah, it does take you 8 years to get
80%
through
of
that.
people
So.
have probably played the first 2 scenarios, right? Okay, I think the app will keep it away from the top 100.
I do
think there's
too.
too many purists that will say, "Oh, it's not a board game. This is more of an
Because-
activity."
Like I said,
I hate that.
the app portion of it is so integrated that you are just using the tiles to move pieces. I mean, they're nice for
And you
people
still-
who don't have it projected up on the TV the way I
Right.
do.
And you
But-
still have like coins and experience
Yeah.
points, and you've got like events that you're setting out, and you have your character, and you can unlock other characters, which can be interesting. And I mean, there's things you do. You've got your cards, like, oh, this is your holy water, or this is a silver cross, whatever. You have all those things in front of you, not like just in the app. That's what keeps it from being like just a video game. But I agree. I think that the major app integration will turn a lot of people off from it. I think a lot of people just won't try it because of that. There's people that won't play Chronicles of Crime because of that.
That's true. And Chronicles of Crime is so good. I really love, though, being able to get those items and try the items with different people and ask different people about your stories and stuff. And that makes it that video game level portion, that video game
Right, because
RPG
you're
level
talking to NPCs.
that I love so much. You can't do that same thing in Gloomhaven. You just can't.
Right, you don't talk to the Vermlings. You're not like,
You're
yo,
not
what's
like,
up, bro?
Yo, you suck.
Well, you don't even
The
get to
Vermin's
go.
like, "Eh."
You don't get to go to the Vermlings and be like, I found this moldy compass. What should I do with it? And the Vermlings are like, you know, like they don't care. The Vermlings don't care.
Or in Destinies, you can have the separate things happening for everybody and different conversations that happen with people because of things, and you get so much more involved story. You get an involved story that you can just never have in a game that isn't app ran.
I tell you, if I had to make a hard choice between some of the campaigns we give, I think this probably is the improved
meaning
way.
Destiny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Destinies. Destiny's probably the improved way to play something more like Seventh Continent.
Yes, I think that
Because
if
they both have
Seventh
tiny
Continent
miniatures, they have flip-out tiles.
had an app-driven basis, like app-driven, like Destiny's in, it would make
It'd just be easier to
Seventh
play.
Continent 1,000 times
Because you really want the
more
story.
immersive.
I don't
Right.
want to. I don't want to
That's
move
all
my
you want.
character.
That's
I
all you
don't
want
really
from
need to.
there.
I don't need to physically flip through a bunch of tiles
Yeah.
to flip out a card. Like that part doesn't excite me. The excitement part is
Yeah.
going through and exploring and unlocking more and more story. I think it's very much like a Seventh Continent style game. So if you like Seventh Continent, but you want it to be approachable, much more approachable, this would definitely be a good one to get. What I hope to see is that Lucky Duck, since there is app-based, that they can add additional content, which some people have been talking about. It'd be very easy to do an upgrade pack like they've done with Chronicles, where they just
Yeah.
add some more cards, very inexpensively add
More
some
cards,
more cards.
more of
Like
these little
how-
tiles. Like, it
how-
would be so simple.
How easy would it be for them
Yeah.
to just simply put out another pack and give you like 8 more characters?
And maybe a few more extra tiles here, and then all of a sudden you have a whole new scenario
Yep.
based game there. Like,
Or
that
they
would be
say,
amazing.
or they say, oh, for another $4 or whatever, you can unlock another campaign where you still use the same set of tiles.
A few minis.
But then they have you play as like the Coward, the Faithless, and the Guardian in a campaign, which has never been a combination you were able to play before. It'd be very easy to do that. I think the biggest thing that I don't understand about Destinies is why the 3-player cap. I don't understand why you couldn't have a 4th player.
That's a good question. Hello, Super.
It seems super, super easy. What's going on, Super? It seems very easy just to add a 4th player board. I'm not sure what. I'm sure there's a reason, but I'm not going to call Vince today and ask him. I'm sure there's a reason why.
You
but
should.
I'm surprised that they didn't allow you to do 4, because that would just make it, even for somebody like us, if we played it with 2 of the characters, we could play it again with the other 2 different characters.
I had a buddy fail a roll in Destinies for something, but I happened to have the item thematically worked perfect, so I was able to go over and scan it, and it worked. It felt so cool, right? You cannot get that sort of integrated
Yes.
involvement in things like Gloomhaven with that.
Not the same way. Definitely not the
So-
same way.
Okay, let's see here, because Destinies would be a very easy reskin. I totally agree. So, bottom line, what I think we're trying to get here is, although these 2 games can be clumped into this heavy sort of style campaign game, immersiveness, that's happening, storytelling. 1, they're completely different games, and 2, they're for 2 completely different groups of people. I think that people will have some crossover in those groups, but you really need to be advised at like where these games should be focused at. Like, I think if you are a newer gamer coming into the hobby, you're interested in something like Gloomhaven, I think Destinies is a great start if you don't have much gaming experience.
I disagree with
You disagree, okay.
With your wording.
Okay.
I think it matters how you're coming to board games. If you're
Okay.
coming to board games through RPG-style video games like Witcher, Assassin's Creed, Fallout, Outer Worlds, Skyrim, if that was your kind of reasoning for wanting to play a game, I think Destinies is perfect for those people.
Okay.
It's perfect because it gives you that in-between where it's still a board game, but it has those types of feelings you got on all your different side quests. I think if you are a heavy RPG player and then you're trying to get into board games from that avenue, think Gloomhaven is the way to go, because Gloomhaven is definitely much more RPG-like. It's going to have a lot of things you're familiar with. So I think they offer different experiences depending on how you got in to board gaming. Now, we played RPGs and we played video games, but I think Destinies plays more like a video game, where Gloomhaven plays more like an RPG, like a role-playing game.
It absolutely does. I completely agree.
I think for me, that's the big difference. And I think it depends on, with Gloomhaven, do you want to run the main storyline and find the blades and fight the dragons in something like, say, Skyrim's? Or do you want to run around and mess around with like the gods and level up your blacksmithing and interact and save the town from an ogre? That's Destinies, right?
Right.
Side quests, only main quests, side quests. Is what it feels like. Now, there's obviously a main quest involved in this to win, but this is a competitive race where this is a cooperative main quest only type experience.
So there's some interesting comments up here. So Super says, I'm loving Jaws of the Lion. Single player just picked it up last month. It's so nice and easy to get into.
Jaws
Super.
makes it
I
a lot
really
easier.
love it. Yes, absolutely. So Fatal says, keep them both, Delexify both, okay? So, and then let's see here, we have, and that was from the unanimous vote from the chat, that we keep everything. Jolly Lumpy says, then again, I just started Massive Darkness because my wife was scared of Gloomhaven's.
Gloomhaven's completely just
So,
probably
like,
how
just the
big it is.
massiveness of
Yeah,
it and
I would
stuff,
assume
which
so.
is understandable. And there's something to be said about those games that lead you into other games. I still feel like Destinies is a really good start for players who want to get into dungeon crawls or deep storytelling games.
Yes.
But they might be really intimidated by the fact that they're going to have to spend $120 and have a gigantic box up on their shelf. If you approach Destinies and you kind of get a taste of what some of the story building and storytelling and mechanics and putting stuff on the board is all about, and putting map tiles out, and then you can kind of introduce them to other games from there, because it's such an integrated and easy process and still a really fun story and everything. I feel like anybody's going to enjoy Destinies, but
not everyone will enjoy Gloomhaven.
Right, not everybody will enjoy.
Which we've had groups
Gloomhaven.
fizzle out on Gloomhaven because they just couldn't commit the time.
Absolutely.
Where with Destinies, you can, because it's just a one and done scenario for the most part. Cody says that they could easily add a fourth and add extra Destinies for each, and enough story points for everyone to have a chance to complete their Destiny. I feel like that could potentially become an add-on later, that they'll sell like a fourth player expansion with like the next campaign they do or something like that.
That would be really, really nice.
I can see that very easily. The good thing about an app-assisted game like this, or an app-integrated game, is they could very easily add that. If they added that fourth player board and, you know, some additional character cards for a low cost or whatnot, it'd be very easy for them just to add that fourth character into the app without really having to overhaul and do everything. You can't change anything about Gloomhaven. It's done. You're not changing anything about Gloomhaven.
It's all in writing. It's all in writing.
So here's my takeaway from all of this. I think they're both good games. They're very different from each other. They've got different places. I'm going to lose some gamer cred here. I'm going to keep Gloomhaven because I have to. It's like a law.
Because you have to. Like, you can't. You're like, it's just going to become a play, like a table centerpiece. You're like, there,
I'm going to keep Gloomhaven because it's like the law, and it's the #1 game on BGG,
it's the
right?
Law.
So if you don't like Gloomhaven, you're shunned from the community. But here's the reality of it, is that, oh gosh, keep coming up. I'm still working it up. Is that Gloomhaven is going to stay dusty like this and unplayed for years until one of us retires or hits the lottery and no longer has to work, where I will actually play through everything in Destinies. And I will continue to buy expansions for Destinies whenever they come out. And although Gloomhaven is great and it's a fun experience and everything, I have a feeling that this is going to end up like our RPGs on the shelf, where it's like, oh man, we got this cool RPG, but we never actually finish. Not that you can finish an RPG, but we never really get to it the way we want to. And so Gloomhaven is there so that I don't get laughed off the internet and they take away my YouTube channel.
They take it away. They're like, you can't have this gaming channel.
But in reality, I will play everything through Destinies and I will enjoy it more. And I know that makes me a bad person, and I don't care. I'm not doing it to be contrary. I like Gloomhaven. But the reality is I'm going to play Destinies and have a great time with it and come back to it. I could see me coming back to this with a kid. We came back to Time Stories, which was another one of those you can only play once games. If you wait a year or two and you play and you play 150 different games in that year, guess what? You can come back to it. There'll be certain parts you remember, but when you play with a new group, you just don't make any decisions on those points. It was very easy to do. I said, oh, I know what this guy does. I wonder if they're going to fall into that same trap that I did. I said, well, what would you guys like to do? And I let them decide instead.
Yes.
I feel like Destiny is something I can come back to just the same way you can replay Skyrim and still enjoy it. You might have a general idea of what's happening. You might be able to get through things faster, but you can still go back and enjoy it. I think Gloomhaven I have to keep because, like I said, I don't want them to take away our YouTube channel.
All right, so here, Cody says, I backed ISS Vanguard, and I already know I won't be able to finish it. Sometimes you do that. Like, we also backed ISS Vanguard, and we hope to play through it, but, like, we also have, Secrets of the Lost Station
we have a lot
on our shelf. I mean, we love these types of games.
We have Frosthaven coming.
Super says you could send it to them, and they'll put it to good use. How dare you? We're keeping it for our coffee table.
It's so heavy.
Rep. We need our gamer rep, okay?
Well, you might feel differently. I don't know what your thoughts are. I think you always have much higher hopes that we'll get this stuff, where I tend to be more realistic, like, oh yeah, I can play through this. It's like the difference between Fallout versus like Outer Worlds. Fallout, you start playing it, you better have like a year to mess around to finish it. Outer Worlds, although it's very much like Fallout, I'm talking about video games, of course, sorry about that. It's completable. Like, you can beat it in a couple weekends and whatnot and be like, yeah, is it shorter? Yes. But is it a condensed experience? Yes. Does it have a similar feel? Yes. One of them is just very completable, where the other one you could potentially never complete.
Okay.
Skyrim could potentially be uncompletable if you don't do the main storyline and you just do all the side stuff. You could play it forever. That's how I feel about Gloomhaven. It could be a forever game that I never finish, where this is a game I will most definitely finish. Like an Assassin's Creed, you can finish an Assassin's Creed. You can never truly finish Skyrim. You can never 100% it, really. You can, but you can't. There's so much stuff.
CB says, I'm late to the party, but Gloomhaven is a dungeon crawl, and Destinies is essentially a bunch of one-shot missions. I think the story in Gloomhaven is more cohesive, and I think we agree with you, CB. So here's my thoughts on it. I remember the most ridiculous things, like movies. I'll remember a movie, like super, like, you can basically throw it up, and I hadn't seen it in 20 years, and as soon as I see the opening screen, like, I'll know what the movie is and stuff. Like, I just remember random stuff like that.
But not songs.
Not songs.
Not a song. Not at all.
No, I remember the song. I don't remember the artist.
I could be like, ba-da-ba-ba-ba, and she'll be like, I don't know what that is. I'm like, I'm loving it. Come on, that's a McDonald's jingle.
Not good at doing the tune. So, I know.
We're fighting. Come on, right now. How dare you?
I'm going to remember every single detail of everything in Destinies for all my life. For no good reason.
But did you do that for Time Stories?
Not for Time Stories, because
Time Stories,
there's enough puzzles in it, and there's enough repetitions of going off of different paths that it gets confusing, I think, and that information going together and becoming confusing
if you leave it
is
for
what
enough
muddles
time,
it up. Yeah.
You remember
it breaks
certain
it up
parts,
in
but
my
not
mind.
the whole thing.
Since this one is so integrative and thematic, it would be the same thing as going into a video game. And
replaying the first 5 levels or something?
I know what's going to happen in that video game, because I always do this jump and hit this brick here and go over there with Mario.
Let me ask you a question.
That sort of thing.
Do you remember where I found all of the silver items?
Yes, I do. I remember where we found all the silver items, okay? I do. And I think
that's the difference between somebody that is trying to, like, solve a puzzle versus somebody that's there to enjoy the ride.
Right, exactly.
I enjoy the ride, so I can rewatch a movie because I remember, oh, I like this movie, and I remember very specific points, but there's always something that I forget, and I'm like, oh, yeah, that's that one part, and I get to enjoy it again.
I'm puzzle solving the entire time, so for me, all of the content in Destinies is super, super vivid, and once I play through Destinies, I'm going to have a hard time, I think, playing over the same scenarios, even if I'm the different characters. Like, I'm still going to try it and see how I feel, but I already feel like I already know those. Like, I know where to find things. Like, I know what you were doing. I already had figured out what you were doing in the campaign, and I was looking at stuff, and I was like, oh, he should go over here and do this, this, and this. But, like, I'm almost in my mind, like, playing other people's characters and where they should be going. Or I find something, I'm like, oh, somebody else should be using this. You know, like, I'm already so engrossed in learning everything in the game that I don't think that Destinies will be as fun for me to go back to. Whereas the dungeon crawl game is still a dungeon crawl, and it's more about the journey through everything versus, like, the crime solving almost in this one.
I hate you so much right now. You're the worst. The the worst.
Super says, have you ever tried making your own board games? Yes, I have, actually. I have not played them with people, though. I have dabbled in creating some stuff, but I'm not ready to actually go ahead and have people try it and everything. I'm curious about it, though. I'm wondering if Oathsworn will replace Gloomhaven, especially since the Game of Thrones voice actors have such a rich narration, although we downloaded the voice narration for Gloomhaven also. Yeah.
No, because here's the thing. People like popular things, and I am not a person that's a contrary person that's like, oh, you like pumpkin spice latte? That's lame. I don't really care what you drink. But people like popular things. So Gloomhaven's gotten to the level of popularity that almost no matter what comes out after it will always be compared to it, and there'll always be people that'll be like, well, I like the original. Like, there's always people that will love the original Star Wars. There's always been people that love the original Lord of the Rings more than they love, like, The Hobbit. For better or for worse. It almost doesn't matter. There's always going to be that person who's like, I remember when Smashing Pumpkins first came out. Like, they're always going to love that thing. I remember when Nirvana didn't even have their first CD and I heard them live. There's always going to be somebody that has such memories tied to something that I don't see Gloomhaven getting toppled anytime soon. It'll probably always stay in that top 20 or at least over the years. I don't see another campaign game toppling it. It's just too well known.
Aw, thanks, Glory Mom. She says she writes stories too. I do. I have like 100,000 word novel just sitting somewhere.
Petter got you. The fact that she's playing other people's turns is why your turns take so long. Boom!
It's true, Petter. It's true. But I like knowing all the information, okay? I like knowing everything.
That's very true, because how many times have you said to me, I can't believe you did that to me, and I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm not even looking at your board. I'm just trying to win. Very
I'm looking at everybody's board, and I'm looking at what everybody is doing.
I can do that if I'm like in a comfortable position where I've got lots of time to mess around. But
I remember when DrGloryhogg was cool. Oh,
it's true.
Oh. All right, so
I'm actually wearing a shirt from back when we used to podcast, back when I used to be cool. Because I'm also a hipster.
First off, I just want to say thank you for everybody joining us today. If you are new to the channel, make sure to give us a thumbs up, like, and subscribe, and go ahead and ring that bell to get notified whenever we go live. But I want to leave all of you with a final question here. Because we've gone through kind of the pros and cons, the differences, like we've compared the games. We figured out that, they're completely different games. They're for different types of people. But overall, chat, Doctor, if you had to keep only one, which one would you keep?
Destinies. I'm sorry, Gloomhaven. I would keep
Destinies. Don't do that.
It's too heavy to put on the ground. I can't lift it up again. 100%, I would keep Destinies, and I know that makes me a bad person, and I don't care.
You are a bad person, but I still love you. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. Well, maybe I don't love you as much now.
I would never play Gloomhaven by myself. If for some reason you decided to kick me to the curb, but you gave me Destinies, I could see myself playing through Destinies by myself.
Well, whenever
not even caring.
we get divorced, I'm putting Destinies in my part of the board game.
Specifically?
Specifically.
It's okay. I want the cat. I desperately want that cat. I love that cat so much.
No, you don't.
So much. And all of those pencils that you've collected over the years, I need those pencils.
CB says, you guys should totally do a top 10 dungeon crawls. Gloomhaven, Oathsworn, Oko Chronicles, Shadow of Brimstone, Madeira. Yeah. So I've been thinking about that a little bit more because of this comparison.
I knew everybody would hate me and say Gloomhaven.
Going into a comparison for other games like this and everything, because the fog of divorce says better. Exactly.
It would be interesting to go over our campaign games, though, and what we like about them.
Yeah, if you all are really enjoying this video, like, give us extra likes and stuff like that.
Yeah, make new YouTube accounts.
Well, I'm just saying because
double subscribe.
If this video does well, we'll probably end up doing more of these, because I personally am interested in just giving a comparison of all the different ones and really picking out which games are for different people, because there's a hardcore Gloomhaven fan that I know that just did not like Tainted Grail. And so that's a really important comparison, because they're both those style of games. They're both high-dollar games. And being able to pick out the one that's going to be good for you and that you're going to love, and then maybe dabble in the others and do like more try before you buys, I think is going to be really complimentary for everybody out there. So for me...
Battlecry got me good. He's like, but you don't even own Destinies. That's true. I don't.
I'm gonna have to say Gloomhaven. I would want the replayability of Gloomhaven.
Why don't you try dusting it off every once in a while?
I'm gonna dust it off. I want to play it. Me talking about it just makes me want to play it more. Like, I just want to sit down and play it now. But I don't have the time because I'm playing Destinies tonight.
Which makes you a better person.
Oh, I'm a bad person too, says Marie. Destinies.
Yeah.
We have lots in there. So Jolly says Gloomhaven. Petter says Gloomhaven. Super says Gloomhaven. Let's see. If I had to keep one, it would be Destiny, says CB. Because I could totally teach new people Destiny so easy, but I think Gloomhaven is the better game IMO. And I agree with you a lot, CB. I would 100% teach everybody I know Destinies and how to play that. And then I would bring a select few people who played Destinies and liked it over to the Gloomhaven games and see how they liked that. But it would not be a direct play this and then play that because they are completely different. And I don't think everybody's going to enjoy Gloomhaven, but everybody will probably enjoy playing Destinies, even if it's just a one-off, okay? Gloryhound crushes the doctor's cred, says Joe Roberts.
We got another Destinies. Woo!
It's so tricky because I want to, converse more than with text. Yeah.
You know, I'm actually, I was thinking about this yesterday, but I ran into some things. I think I'm going to jump in one of the Discord chat channels that we have today.
And just talk to
I got to
people?
work still, but like, you know, I'm looking at stuff. We can chit chat. We can talk about it. You can try to convince me that Gloomhaven is better and just be wrong.
And maybe we'll do a Gloomhaven versus Tainted Grail or something like that and compare those two, because those two are very different games as well. Let's see here. I just got the custom card holders and character boards for Gloom. I can't wait to try them. Ooh, quality components, Cody. I'm always excited about those.
See, where I see myself upgrading Destinies that we have, like we bought an insert for Gloomhaven and stuff like that, but I don't know. I'm just right in that this is a better game. I'm sorry.
When Etherfields gets here, CB, we'll have to let you know because we have not received our copy yet. So, like, I want that on my table so bad. I was so excited to play that game.
Here's the thing. I think that we talked about this when we did our top 10 of 2020. One of the highest, so theme of course matters to me. The experience I have when I play the game matters to me. Then mechanics of course is in there. I think one of the number one things that I think of that other people don't is how much am I going to play this? And that factors in a lot for me.
Yeah.
I can have a perfect game that I never play, like say like something like Twilight Imperium. I could love that game, but it'll never make my top 10 if I know I'm just never going to play it. And that's just the reality.
Which,
like,
yeah,
the reason why Dwellings can be high up in
Yeah.
my list is because I've gotten to play it like 7 times or 8 times this year already. And I could potentially play it more if I wanted to. I could teach that to somebody. There's a lot of games that I really like Dead of Winter. I enjoyed Dead of Winter,
Yeah.
but we haven't played it in like 2 years.
I still want to play that
So
game.
that drops it down in my list because it's not easy to get into the
Just
same way. That makes a difference.
Come over here, everyone, and play all the games that don't get to my table. You guys can just all come over and we'll play all those games. We'll make a weekend of it. It'll be amazing, okay?
Yeah, Destiny's is going to have so many expansions and different settings.
Yeah.
I agree. I think they can go anywhere they want with Destiny. Just like they did with Chronicles of Crime, where they have Nor, then they've got the Red View, where it's like the 80s kids.
I'll never be disappointed by that, though. Like, if I have new content to play in Destinies, I'll always be excited about that. But
even if it's a space western?
Even if it's a space western.
The Mandalorian.
I like space westerns.
Oh my god, the Mandalorian would
apparently.
be amazing as Destinies. You go around from planet to planet.
I wonder
could totally do that.
if the new Descent by Fantasy Flight will shake up the whole dungeon crawl genre. I would say they are still in my top 10 publishers. Yeah. We ended up actually getting rid of our Descent, I think, like a while ago. Or did we not have that one?
You keep thinking that we owned it at one point, but we never have.
Oh, dang
we
it.
Have never
we didn't
owned
own
Descent.
that one, apparently. I know we played it.
I've never played Descent.
Oh, well, never mind. I know I played it.
I don't know what game you're thinking of, but I have never played Descent. I would remember.
GloryCon, that would be so amazing. Maybe one day Battlecry. That would be so much fun. Well,
ooh, Binding of Isaac, 4 Souls versus Munchkin.
Oh, that would be a really fun comparison too, because I know a lot about Munchkin for sure too, and they're really similar.
On Destinies, Ragnar Lothbrok.
Space Destinies would be amazing. Space Destinies would be amazing.
You could do so many things with that, because you could do Ragnar Lothbrok, getting on a ship, sailing to England, fighting the French, all kinds of good stuff.
Well, thank you for everybody who joined us here today and talked about this. This was really fun. I really enjoyed comparing them and kind of going through the differences and stuff. And they're both going to probably stay on our shelves because we both have a different love for each each one, you know, and we're going to use them for different things. I think that's the biggest part.
Here's the thing, too. This is kind of a peek in what we go through whenever we do decide to call, is we will take games. Usually we won't take games this far apart in the spectrum, but we'll take games that are similar. Like I would take this and say 7th Continent, and if we had to, for some reason, make room, I would say, okay, which one are we going to play more? And we would talk about it, go back and forth, debate it. We wouldn't probably do it for like, you know, an hour, but, you know, we would debate it for usually a good 30 minutes and then decide which one stays and which one has to go. And that's kind of how we make our picks.
Oh, Jolly Lemmy says, GloryCon would be tempting, but I'd have to stick to Spiel and Essen this year. Oh, I'm so jealous, Jolly.
DrGloryhogg is a genius. Mandalorian Destinies.
You just wanted to say Dr. Gloryhogg was a genius, didn't you?
I didn't want to say it.
But you had to say it.
Yes.
So.
I did. Is anybody free to go put this back up on top of my calyx?
Probably. All right, everyone. We're going to be playing Destinies later this evening on the Game Boy Geeks channel. So if you're interested in seeing the first scenario, which is the open scenario that is not connected to the other
ones.
I
changed my mind. We're going to do the 3rd scenario.
No.
Yeah, we're changing it up. Changing it up. We'll see. We'll play something. I'm going to try to convince her to play something since she knows all the roles. I don't think you could replay it fairly. We got to try something different.
Well, that's why I was worried about it. But, you know, I mean, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see all of you later today. Bye.